If they don't practice being in the state of emotions that they're going to be in when they're in games, then they're really only doing half the work. When it's game time, you can set self one aside. It's not your job to judge misses and makes are bad or good in that moment. What you need to do instead is trust the body that does.
Welcome to the Shooters Shoot YouTube channel. I'm your host today, Coach Kevin, BriAnna's certified shooting coach and director of all things digital media. We've given BriAnna no heads up whatsoever about today's topics. So without further ado, let's get into our first edition of Unscripted. I have collected questions for you specific to the world of shooting. These are questions that we get all the time from people on the YouTube channel, in the DMs, in the comments, and we wanted to consolidate all of these into one useful resource for folks on the YouTube page. So we've got a bulk of questions here. We don't need dissertations, but we want like your 1 or 2 minute expertise answers on these things. And especially part of the reason I didn't give you a heads up on all of this is because we want whatever comes first to the top of your head, because these are such common questions and things that you certainly hear all the time. And even I'm starting to notice in shot breakdowns and seeing comments and things like that. So first and foremost, question for you: why does my elbow flare out when I shoot a basketball? So we see a lot of kids who have either this one or sometimes even this one. What's your take on what is causing that elbow to flare out?
Okay, good question and fantastic introduction. There's probably two things that could be causing an elbow flare. Likely, it has to do more with how you're loading your wrist than necessarily the elbow joint. That discomfort starts in your wrist loading. So most athletes they were taught to put their hand behind the basketball. And what that does now is that makes me load on the outside of my wrist instead of the inside of my wrist, the way we describe it.
In the location of the wrinkles, essentially.
The location of the wrinkles, yeah.
Gotcha.
So like one thing we use to describe that to athletes is if they put their hand flat and swiveled it at their wrist joint, this would be outside, this would be inside, outside, inside, outside, inside. And then hold it when you have the inside swivel and then move it backwards. Right. Then so when you look down, you'll see wrinkles on the inside of your wrist. Right. This is where, so our hand is going to point at our lowest point. Our hands will point like across our body rather than behind the ball, because we put them behind the ball, like naturally to do that, it's, I have to like adjust my shoulder angle. Either I have to move the ball out here, or if it's in here, at times, depending on the athlete, actually at times too, it causes them to squeeze it in too. So it causes both of those uncomfortable things. And yeah, so that's one reason that your elbow flares out when you shoot. Another reason is, you asked me not for dissertations, but here we go. Another reason is because you are shooting 10 toes to the rim. If you have an elbow out situation, it could be that you're shooting 10 toes to the rim and not tilted at the rim. So you can see even when I do that, like that makes my elbow appear more connected just quite naturally based on like my ability to aim off that side. So those are two reasons. I'll be shorter with the next answers. Thank you, Ken.
No, that's great. I think that's good context for everybody to have, because I think that the elbow is not the source of the issue on that one. It's just the symptom that you're seeing. And so being able to fix it elsewhere makes a lot more sense. You're going to enjoy this one. How do I stop using my guide hand thumb when I shoot?
You don't.
That's a hot take.
You don't stop using it. And here's the hot take. You could pull up film of Steph Curry, Caitlin Clark, of Trae Young, of Sabrina Ionescu, Diana Taurasi, of who's in the playoffs right now? Jalen Brunson. So that he uses his right thumb because he's left-handed. But this is enough evidence for me not to teach against it. But I will give a nuance that the purpose of the guide hands is just to balance the basketball into the shooting hand for as long as humanly possible. So if your thumb is the last point of contact there, I don't really care, because I've just seen it work for enough of the greatest shooters of all time that I'm not going to pretend like I know more than the evidence or the data or what we see. There has been plenty of evidence of success of people having a neutral guide hand as well. If you do naturally shoot with your left thumb, that tells me your hands coordinate together or want to coordinate together. When you put your hands over your head like this, naturally both your wrists go forward. right? I mean, you'd have to like one of them is not going forward and sideways, at least
Sure.
normally. And so the reason that I think that thumb flick happens is because our hands like to coordinate together. And if so, then make sure it's contributing to you shooting the ball in a straight line and that it's not contributing to inconsistencies in your spin. Other than that, I also shoot with my left thumb and it's working pretty well for me.
So this just a holdover of old school teaching that we chalk this up to?
Yeah, I think coaches who teach against it rather than just teaching athletes how to use it properly is where it is. And when we try to change natural dynamics of movement, like just for an arbitrary anecdotal reason, then it ends up causing more problems than it solves. Like I've fixed in athletes so many athletes who have had their coach try to teach them not to shoot with their left thumb that they end up doing this, right? With their follow through, like dropping it completely because they don't want to use their guide hands so bad, which is a much bigger problem than, just having a little bit of your thumb at the last point of contact on the ball.
How does someone change their shot from pushing the ball to shooting it? Because we get that question a lot, or we see that a lot in shot breakdowns. How do I stop pushing the ball and turn it into a shot? Like, what's the difference to you in the describing shots that way?
Yeah, I think there's an element of age and strength that has to be accounted for, right? If you're, usually 12 and under, sometimes even 13 and under, athletes just haven't developed the shoulder strength, especially in the United States, haven't developed the shoulder strength to get there. And the reason I say that is because in the United States, there's almost no accessible movable rims in gyms, like in high school gyms or anything. There's no capability of making the rims lower to fit for smaller bodies. Whereas nearly every single facility I've gone to that isn't in the United States, all of them have the ability to raise and lower rims, which
This
is
is this is maddening to me. This is the hill I'm ready to die on as someone who has kids who are now, one of them's going to be in high school next year, one of them's going into seventh grade, so they've sort of progressed out of it. But watching them go through second through sixth grade basketball and just
hate.
yeeting shots, and like half their teammates couldn't get the ball to the rim until the fifth, sixth grade, and there's just no hoops out here. Like there's just, yeah. And it's like they're doomed before they even get to seventh grade.
Yeah, it is a shame. And I'll be real, transparently, it keeps us in a job. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But no, I mean, so yeah, that being said, especially in the United States, there is going to be some elements of pushing the shot. I think when athletes are young, it is what it is. But how we transition that from pushing to lifting outside of strength in our intention is we want the ball to move vertically about 75% of the time. And I got that from measurements on shot paths for average NBA players, like how much of the line was vertical movement. And a good way to think of that is we want to two ways. We want to lift the ball through our face. We don't want any horizontal movement of our forearm until our thumb is like passing our forehead. That's what we observe in the greatest shooters who also shoot with a ton of range. They slam their feet into the ground, right? The ball doesn't change speeds and it's more of a lift. And the forearm continues vertically, yeah, until your thumb passes your forehead. So that's the sort of sensation we'd be looking for as we're developing that in our shot.
Yeah, I call them chin shooters. So we have a rule of no chin shooters because we have a lot of, I coach girls predominantly. We have a lot of
Yeah.
girls that bring the ball to here
Right.
and then shoot it out rather than
Mhm.
lifting up through the face, especially in the late elementary and middle school ages. I see that a lot.
Yeah. And we see that because our chest muscles are stronger than our shoulder muscles, right? If we're
Sure.
trying to do something, we start crawling right before we start doing military press. And so another cue I thought that made me think of though, that works for athletes who are trying to work on lifting instead of pushing is that don't crush the egg. Is pretend that there's an egg right here, then don't break it. Don't crush the egg. Pretend if you have an egg right here, don't break it. And that'll help your lever kind of understand the movement that we're wanting when we're on the way up.
I have strong opinions on this question, but I'm going to let you go first. The question is, why does my shot go left or right when I feel like my form is straight all the way through the process? What do you think could be a culprit if someone's experiencing that?
What is your strong opinion? I'd like to hear yours.
My strong opinion is that often the grip on the ball is too narrow, and so they have small hand on the ball. And so when they come up with it, so they do everything right. Like it goes straight, it comes up, and then the grip is so narrow that when they go to release it, I see the ball moving left or right immediately out of their hand. And as soon as they widen the grip and
Mm,
for the ball and think about these fingers at the rim.
yeah.
Now the surface area and the coverage forces the ball straight,
Yeah.
but with the small hand, there's more room for that ball to move around, and now the ring finger gets involved or the thumb gets involved. But as soon as they open the grip,
Mm.
like that's been a real common thing that I have seen, at least in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember you talking to me about that, like maybe 6 or 8 months ago, and you asked me that question, like, do I see this a lot? And honestly, I don't. Like,
Hmm.
it's so funny that like, because I remember you talking about this before, that it's like a an Oregon problem for women's basketball players for some reason. Like, I've really maybe twice like ever seen, and maybe it's like I don't know. Yeah, that's just funny, but I do remember you saying that. So I think that's a really great insight that I wouldn't have had as far as a cause for that, for one of the potential causes for that.
So what else is on the list then? If someone feels like where are they going wrong if they're missing left or right? Like generally speaking in a process, where would you obviously if you had film, you'd look at a specific shooter, but just
Yeah.
holistically, if someone's a left to right misser, where do you think they're going wrong?
It's gonna have to do with their relationship between their lift path, right? Sometimes they're curving their lift path, so that's
Mm.
part of it. And then the lift path's relationship with the release, like with their hands, right? Directional things are always related to my ability to shoot the ball, in a straight line where I want it to. And so it's either a lift path or like a hand etiquette thing is in one case. And then another case, left to right misses are often caused by our alignment in our body as well. So having sometimes being, aligned here, sometimes being aligned here. For more advanced shooters, that body alignment's not really going to matter. You're going to have to be able to score regardless of, how you're rotating into the basket or falling away or whatever. But at our catch and shoot levels, having consistent body alignment and, consistent direction off your hands is though that's what's causing left to right misses generally.
We see this question a lot in shot breakdown submissions. So, kids, if you're not familiar with the shot breakdowns, people send in their film and we do slow motion breakdowns of it. And one of the forms on the field is, what do you feel is wrong with your shot or
Mm.
what do you struggle with your shot? And we see this a lot. And people say, I shoot better in practice than I do in games. Like it looks
Mm.
really good in practice and then it falls apart in games. Is that obviously we're generalizing here, but is that more of a mental thing? Is that a physical thing? Like, what do you account for people who are lights out or really good in practice, but then as soon as it goes live in a game, it just doesn't look good? Like, how do you coach someone through that?
Yeah, assuming that like so there's two, archetypes of players. Is archetype the right word? I don't know. Two
Sure.
types of players
Yeah.
that we're talking about here. So the player that is like actually really good at shooting, right? Like they're hitting all the shots in practice. Let's say that athlete that knows they can make shots, that's done the work, that's put the work in. They get into games and they fold, right? So let's paint that picture for that specific type of athlete. Generally, the way I approach that with athletes that I work with when they're experiencing that is we add an element of something I call emotional reps to their training. And not every day is the right day to like go there with yourself. Some days you want your rhythm days and you want to just see the ball go through. But in more intense development days, what I have them do is I explain to them that right now they're only doing half the work because they're only doing the physical part of the rep. If they don't practice being in the state of emotions that they're going to be in when they're in games, the same physiological response, the same heart rate, the same thoughts, the same, things matter more, then they're really only doing half the work. And so we put them into an emotional state on purpose by asking them who their most hated defender is. And I make them name the person and like see them in their face, and you can kind of see the crazy in their eyes, right? The defender that you really don't want them to go to guard you if you're just giving respect where it's due. For me, it was an athlete named Navia Palou, who would study my film before games so that she was
Great
already in the
idea.
game. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, And so during my training sessions leading into my senior year of college, where I, arguably like when I learned this technique of making my reps emotional, I had just taken it like a sports psychology internship, and that's where I learned that. And it changed, like I developed so freaking much more by
Hmm.
doing this same amount of work in the gym as far as like my performance and how it turned into games. And so to help that athlete who is just knows they can do it and they always convert in practice. It's like, who is your most hated defender? Can you have that person in front of you no matter who's guarding you in practice? Like, can you make it personal like that? Can you go there with yourself? You can't be too cool, right? You can't be like too lazy to put yourself there mentally. You can't care what your teammates think about you. You can't care about hurting somebody's feelings. Like, can you lean into that sort of crazy? Then your misses are going to mean more and frustrate you more. Your makes are going to mean more and make you more pumped up. And so if you haven't practiced that state of mind, then your expectation to perform while you're in that state of mind is a little bit unwarranted. So
Fair enough. That's a great answer. How do we stop overthinking shots during games? Especially we get kids that, are going through the app program or they're getting personal shot breakdowns and they're getting a lot of input, right? They're getting a lot of things to think about and try as we might to keep it to one or two things. It's hard not to think about my stack and my dip and my lift path and my release angle and my follow through.
yeah,
Like how does an athlete stop overthinking that shot when it's game time?
that's a really, really good question. There's a book, one of the very first books I read on sports psychology, actually that same summer I was just talking about. It's called The Inner Game of Tennis. There was
I've heard
name
of this.
Yeah, the author's name is Timothy Galway. And it's funny because Galway wasn't a sports psychologist. He was just a tennis pro who like got it. Like he just understood it better than I mean, anyway. And so Inner Game of Tennis, I highly recommend it. It's like a day read. It's like 150 pages, like just little thing. So in that book, he describes how he would coach his athletes to separate their selves. So he would separate, each athlete into like self one and self two. Self one is the judging or the thinking mind needed, right? You have to have that in practice. You have to be engaged with your own body. You have to be able to study yourself from rep to rep. Like that's important, right? And then there's self two, which is just the body that does. And so he would coach his athletes when it's game time, you can set self one aside. It's not your job to judge misses and makes are bad or good in that moment. That work is done in practice and it is important, but this isn't the time or the space for it. What you need to do instead is trust the body that does. And then misses and makes are no longer good or bad or worthy of being studied in this moment. The way I like to frame it is you sort of just you embody the mentality of the referee. Like when you miss a shot, like what does the referee think?
He doesn't care at
Yeah, he
all.
doesn't care. He or she doesn't care at all.
Probably see it in the first place.
Yeah, call it in or out, and that's it. Keep it moving because it's not your time to have the thinking of the judging mind. It's your time to give that one a break and then just be the body that does. Trust your body to do the work that you've been training it to do. And those are the places where you find flow.
How do I as a shooter shoot faster without demolishing my accuracy? Like once I've established, like let's assume I'm a good shooter already. Like you can't
Mhm.
leave me open, I'm shooting a good percentage, but it's too slow. How do I speed up my shot without just blowing up my accuracy and my shooting percentage?
Yeah, I'll give you one technique focused piece and then another, that's maybe more of an obvious like practice, focus is if you're trying to speed up your shot, then like you have to shoot at that ridiculous, like unreasonable, like too fast speed in practice. Like you have to shoot faster than you're like comfortable with. Your body has to adjust because really it's a faster rhythm that your body has to adjust to, right? It's not just a faster ball path. So that's one part of it is like if you're trying to speed your shot up, you have to take intentional reps of just shooting that thing as fast as you possibly can and be willing to miss shots like during that process. The technique part is generally when athletes struggle with shooting or getting their shot off faster. It probably has less to do with speed of the ball and more to do with when you're loading the basketball. Many athletes, even at the pro level, will load the basketball by catching and then loading and then shooting. And instead, there's no reason to have your catch and your load to be two different things. So on the catch, you're getting into your loaded position every single time. And if you can do that the same way, then not only will you shoot faster, but you will be more accurate because you're not adding another movement before your loading phase, which then would complicate and add variability. So that's the practice way and the technical way to speed up your shot is just load the basketball on the catch instead of after.
All right, we're in the home stretch. Handful of questions left. How does one build a repeatable shot that will translate when they're tired? It's one thing to hit shots in the gym for 30 or 40 minutes when it's just you, and it's another thing to hit fourth quarter 3-pointers when I've been playing, 20 minutes a game and I'm tired. How do you, outside of the obvious of just like, well, you have to exercise and practice before you shoot, like how are you training that?
Well, the simpler your shot is, the fewer moving parts it has, then in theory, the less energy you would need to exert to, get it from A to B. But yeah, there isn't, I mean, like if you're the shooter on your team, then you are in the best shape of anybody. Like you can't, like shooters don't get tired. And so there really is no like easy, other than having a simple compact, mechanism of shooting, like you just have to be willing for your legs and your heart rate to burn every single time you're in practice, because you just have to be a little bit crazier than the person who's going to guard you. And there's really no like secret or cheat code to that. Like you just have to embrace the suck and let it be hard.
What does
And
that what does that look like in a training session if I'm in a gym with just me and a coach or me and a parent who's rebounding for me? Am I running to half court before every shot, or like how am I do if I'm working on catch and shoot 3-pointers from the wing? Like am I doing squat jumps? Am I doing push up? Like how would you take just your sort of average youth or high school athlete and incorporate the cardio into the shooting workout at a level where we're not going to just destroy the amount of reps I can get up in my session because I got limited time in the gym?
I think that, yeah, I think if you just shoot really hard, like if you just go really hard, even in your catch and shoots,
Hmm.
like, or whatever, especially if you're doing stuff off the dribble, like off the dribble stuff is going to be more taxing. So maybe adding like a couple of double moves or something off the dribble to your workouts and then just go ham. I think that, yeah, like you could absolutely add a half court and back to like re-challenge yourself, and do some competitions like that. I think that's a great idea. But I don't think you have to do anything outside of basketball movements and like working on your game to get yourself to the place of cardio. Now, you could do a full court, right? Transition shooting, like that would be really good cardio base, or like full court star drill. Like many people have seen Steph Curry do, right? Like baseline, opposite baseline, and then, et cetera, making a star around the full court. But like it's a willingness to set a process goal. Like how many times do I need my legs to burn
Yeah.
today or every practice? If I want to say that to start, okay, first practice, I'm trying to get in shape. I need my legs to burn at least 4 times today and just keep it there, right? And then when that becomes too easy, then you say, okay, now I need my legs to burn and me to be like bent over, huffing and puffing at least once, right? And then building yourself up from there. But that's just effort. That's just like if you're willing to go there to be that kind of crazy or not.
How do I fix my shot if I'm left-handed but my coaches are right-handed? Like if it's not like is it more difficult for coaches to coach lefties, or to all of our left-handed shooters out there who walk into gyms and everything coaches are teaching is right-handed focused? How do we overcome that for our left-handed friends?
Put the coach in front of you so it's a mirror instead of next to you so it's opposite, is what I would
Interesting. I've never heard that. That's a really good one. I like that. Mechanically, is there anything different that you coach lefties versus righties?
No, I actually think it's funny. I think that left-handed people are either have a huge advantage or a huge disadvantage, and that a lot of left-handed shooters are really pure because they couldn't be overtaught to death and
Mm.
overshown what to do, right, to death. And then on the other side, like my left-handers that are more neurotic, that want to do it right, would maybe struggle with that a bit more without having to have a proper demonstration. But most people try to teach each other shoot by standing next to a person. Whereas if you're teaching a left-handed person, just stand across from them and have them mirror your movements.
You're going to love this question. My coach tells me to, quote, get my elbow in, but it feels uncomfortable. What do I do?
Your elbow's probably fine. Let me make a nuance. Let me add some nuance. Let me give some detail here. We cannot, in any case, chicken wing from our body. We need our arms to stay framed and connected to our sides, not squeezed, right, or connected to our sides. But the reason your elbow likely is coming out is because your shoulder is uncomfortable with this. Like I have coaches, if you're watching this, like hold up your shooting arm, so where your elbow is even with your shoulder, and then go cookie cutter elbow in while facing directly at me. Like you can already no go elbow higher. Yeah, he got bolder shoulders, right? It's even harder for him. And so you can
Yeah.
really feel the tension in the back of your shoulder here. Now I
Yeah.
want you to go all the way through your follow through without letting your elbow come out at all. Ugh,
Yeah.
like why were we teaching? So here's what I will suggest if your elbow keeps coming out. It's probably just your body fighting to like move like it's supposed to. And you're probably shooting 10 toes to the rim. And so by allowing my body to be slightly tilted so my shooting side is a bit closer, and this is what we see in 99% of athletes and players who are at the pro or division 1 level, then now you can move the ball in a straight line and you can not have to yank your elbow in, right? You can just move the ball and move your elbow in a straight line. Now here, if I turn back straight, that looks like elbow out, right? But here I can just move the ball in a straight line, open up this shoulder hinge joint, right? That's supposed to, our arms are on our sides, not on our fronts, at least for most of us. So as we're now moving through and we're able to follow through straight down our line, this also prevents athletes from following through across their face as well. And so I don't think it's that you need to put your elbow in. I think you probably just need to adjust your body and remember that we're framing our body and aiming the basketball. So you could, imagine you had an exercise band, right? Like up here, right? That's still fine. Like I'm still able to put my arms by my sides, right? But I'm not letting them, tuck in like this.
Yeah.
So we still want to frame our body with our biceps, but we don't need to have our arm come inside of our shoulder joint like that.
What's one thing you wish coaches would stop teaching about shooting?
Well, elbow in, that would be one. Space and palm.
I was taught that as a kid,
Yeah,
right?
I was taught that as well. Yeah, like you need 2 fingers of space. Don't let the ball
Yep.
rest on your palm. This is just
Yep.
baffling, bananas, egregious. I wish because especially well, really for everybody, but especially for my little girls who just want to do it right. Like girls just listen, not that boys don't listen. Boy, I have plenty of boys that listen on here, and then sometimes you're just likely to get a girl who just wants to get it right, rather than just making the shot. And so, I see so many young girls at camps who have something. I got this language from Mike Dunn. He calls it spaghetti fingers when your fingers stretch backwards because they're only holding the ball with their fingertips. And then they're trying to shoot the ball, but they got little bitty, not strong hands. And then the ball, flicks back on their fingers. Now they only put energy underneath the basketball instead of letting it just connect to hold the whole basketball, right? Letting it connect to their whole hand. It doesn't mean they're squishing it into their hand. That's what coaches say. No, I don't want you to shoot it with your palm. Like nobody's going to shoot a basketball like that. They're still going to follow.
Sure.
But yeah, holding the whole basketball. So when coaches teach keep space, it also makes it really difficult to get proper wrist engagement because you're not letting this thing connect and rest comfortably on your hand. So it just causes so many more problems than it solved. And hands are the hardest thing to fix. Not impossible, right? They're just the most tedious thing to fix, I should say. They're the least satisfying. Like there's lots of things you can fix in shooting that like you can fix in one session because your body likes it, but hands are just a nuisance. But that's my TED talk on what I don't like that coaches keep teaching.
Nice. We'll take you off your soapbox now. All right, that's all the questions we have for you this week. If the folks on the internet like this format and are watching it, we'll keep collecting and we'll do a round 2 of this at some point. Thanks for bearing with me through the sporadic questions, but that was sort of the intent of this. So thank you for your time, and make sure you guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, like, and get all kinds of great stuff from Shoot or Shoot.